It's the first full week in October. Do you know what that means? That means it is Mental Illness Awareness Week, although the hashtag that's trending is Mental Health Awareness Week. I think I liked that version of it a little bit better. But let's learn about this real quick. Mental Illness Awareness Week was established in 1990 by the U.S. Congress in recognition of efforts by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, to educate and increase awareness about mental illness. It takes place every year during the first full week of October. During this week, mental health advocates and organizations across the U.S. join to sponsor events to promote community outreach and public education concerning mental illnesses such as major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. An estimated 26.2% of Americans ages 18 and older, about 1 in 4 adults, are believed to be diagnosable with a mental illness in any given year. The numbers may be larger because stigma reduces reporting. That's an interesting statement. Stigma reduces reporting. We could even say that that applies sometimes when we're talking about missing persons cases that might involve health issues, mental health issues as well. And do we have something like that going on here with today's case? There are some aspects of this that are mental health related. We've got a very concerned father wondering where his son is, and he's posted some very strong words, and I want to share them with you because I think all of us need to get a better understanding of what a family goes through facing challenges like you have in a mental health situation, but outside of that, when that situation might lead to the person actually disappearing. Today we're looking for this man. This is Cory Lanteigne. I'm hoping that you can help me and his father, Rick, make some progress on this case. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Cory Lanteigne. Welcome back to Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Well, this is the guy we're looking for. His name is Cory Rick Lanteigne, and he's been missing since December 8th, 2016 from Kawartha Lakes, Ontario. This is a case that's taking place in Canada. I've got all kinds of different contact information in the description box below for you. He went missing at the age of 34. So let's get into this case. Starting with a quick stop at Wikipedia, the city of Kawartha Lakes has about 75,000 people as of 2016. It is in central Ontario, Canada. And as you can see from this rough map of the area, we certainly, whenever we're looking at missing persons cases, and especially if we're looking at one where we're talking about mental health issues possibly being at play, we have some big cause for concern. We've got a lot of very large water sources in this area. Let's get into some of the details, starting with a post on a forum that is primarily for fishing. This is at lakesimcooutdoors.com. We have a post here from Baitcaster34 posted December 13th, 2016. Hey guys, one thing I like about this message board is the traffic it gets, and I'm hoping this helps. A good friend of mine has gone missing in the last week, and his family is now in a panic to find him. OPP, that's the Ontario Provincial Police, are involved, and there is a news report from checks detailing the case. My friend, Cory Lanteigne, also just had a baby this year and has a stepson and wife that are very worried and want him home for Christmas, or at the least know he's safe with the coming cold. He has had a past history of mental illness, but poses no harm to anyone. He most likely was trying to hitchhike when last seen and has done so in the past. One of the reasons why we cover these cases is to share these stories with other families that might be going through similar things. And even when I speak to families that we've featured on the channel, I try to remind them about things like this. When we were talking about the Vincent Shea case, I was talking to his son and daughter-in-law about the possibility of reaching out to recreational groups that might be doing things in the area where he went missing. So Baitcaster34, I think this is a really good use of a forum like this. And as you can see, communities typically rally around messages like this. There's a lot of supportive responses that come to this post in the forum. And I've watched a whole lot of cases over the past several years as we've been covering them here on the channel. In many of these cases, it's not law enforcement that actually finds the missing person. It's usually someone that's doing something recreational, a dog walker, a mushroom hunter, someone that's hiking, someone that's hunting. So these can be really, really important tools, and that's why I wanted to start with this post from Baitcaster. But let's get into some of the news on this. December 13th, 2016, his aunt, Susan Todhunter, who lives in Trenton, says she's concerned for her nephew's safety, who, when he was last seen, wasn't dressed for the cold weather and headed out on foot. He was last seen in the area of Little Britain. It's a community in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Now, that's back December 13th, 2016. I can tell you his aunt is still very active with this case as well. If we jump to the Facebook group for Let's Find Cory Lanteigne, we can see that Susan Todhunter posted September 15th. And what did she post about? They did another search. They got some volunteers out and they went looking for Cory. So this is a case the family's still working on. I can tell you his father, Rick, actually reached out to me at one point last year also. They're doing everything they can to try to find Cory, and someone out there might have some information that could help them. And that's why we're sitting here doing this. Now, of course, Canada does not have NamUs, so we don't have a NamUs profile for him, but I did find a pretty decent write-up of him here at an RCMP-based website. That's Royal Canadian Mounted Police. On December 8th, 2016, Cory Lanteigne was reported missing by family members after having gone out for a short walk and never returning. He was not dressed for the weather conditions at the time and was experiencing a mental health crisis. An extensive ground search was conducted by police in the area where he was last seen, but failed to locate him. Here we get some of his critical stats. So his year of birth is 1982. Like I said, he was 34 years old at the time that he disappeared. I don't know exactly when his birthday is, but we could estimate he'd be about 3 years older at this point. Gender male. Eye color, they have listed here as brown. I've seen other descriptions where they say possibly hazel. You might consider them hazel. Hair is brown, usually very close shaved, like we see in this photo here. For his height, we have 180 centimeters or 5 foot 11 inches tall. For his weight, 75 kilograms or 165 pounds. For build, slender, thin. Complexion is light to fair. Things that he's wearing, he's got a gray shirt at the time that he goes out, black shoes, a black jacket, and gray cotton pants. At least he has a jacket, but I can see, especially if he's wearing, it sounds like sweatpants. If he's wearing sweatpants out into the cold like that, Ontario in December, that could certainly be concerning. In the gallery here, we have a few different pictures of him. And I do think it's worth noting his glasses alter his appearance pretty strongly. So I do like that they're including shots of both with and without his glasses. Tons of different ways that you could send in tips on this case. So in the description box below, we're going to have kind of a bigger section than usual of all the different ways that you can send in tips. If you do have tips about this case, I usually suggest kick them into all those different methods. You never know which one of those is going to get picked up and actually acted on. You'd like to think that everything does, but I know that law enforcement's constantly reprioritizing their work on a day-to-day basis. So it could be that maybe a tip could fall to the wayside, not get acted on quickly, but if it comes in through several channels, you might have a better shot. So that's why I'm trying to include so many different methods in the description box below for sending in tips. Jumping over to missingpeople.ca. It has been 5 months since 34-year-old Cory Lanteigne was last seen on O'Reilly Lane. So this is one of the first mentions we get of the actual street. I pulled up a map for O'Reilly Lane in Kawartha Lakes, and I'm pretty concerned. We've got a pretty big water source that is directly across the street from this lane. I'd be very worried about that water source. We're going to get into some information that shows that local authorities have actually checked that water source a few times. He has not been found in there, but certainly cause for concern if you have someone that's having a mental health crisis and you've got a large water source like that. I don't really see bridges on that water source, which of course would be another cause for concern. Continuing at missingpeople.ca, Cory Lanteigne went missing at 4 p.m. on Thursday, December 8th, 2016, when he was last seen leaving family members' home on O'Reilly Lane. Since that time, Kawartha Lakes police have continued to investigate his disappearance, but have failed to locate him. He has brown hair that was shaved very close to his head, and he was unshaven. He has been known to hitchhike in the past. Police do not suspect any foul play in his disappearance. I don't have any details on his past of kind of going off hitchhiking, but that might be a good attribute in this case. If he did go outside and he didn't have clothes on for the weather, it could be that someone driving by would notice that and maybe offer to give him a ride somewhere. So there might be some aspect to this hitchhiking thing that could actually play out well for a case like this. Just a consideration that we have to keep in mind as we continue. Big thank you to mykawartha.com for covering this case so well. There's been several articles they've put out. I'm not even including all of them here because we're going to get all the details from the articles that I did include. But I'm just thankful that we have a local news source that's really trying to help with this case, especially knowing that this is a mental health related issue that is going on to Cory during the time that he disappears. Here in the U.S., sometimes these cases might not get necessarily the same amount of coverage because it has a condition like that. There's several different conditions where it seems like major media will kind of back off a case, but sometimes that's where smaller local media can really step up, and it looks to me like Kawartha is doing exactly that. I also want to give a very big thank you to the author of this piece, Barbara Ann McIkern. Hope I'm saying that right, Barbara. She did a really good job pulling the story together, but then digging deeper. This is another thing that I'm always looking for in these cases. Occasionally, you'll find a journalist that really cares and really digs into the case. Barbara is that person for this case. So she gets some great detail. Let's go into it here. Cory Lanteigne, 35, of Mount Albert, was visiting family in Little Britain in December of 2016 when he went for a walk and never returned. And this article is from July 11th, 2017. When Lori Davies left for work on the chilly morning of December 8th, Cory Lanteigne drew a large heart in the condensation on the window, adding, "I love you," inside. The message is a fitting one for the woman to hold on to 7 months later, recalling the day her beloved nephew vanished without a trace. The 35-year-old always wanted to be a father. His dream was realized not once, but twice, first in caring for his stepson, Nolan, and then, about 8 months before he went missing, his son, Lucian, was born on April 25th. That was one of the happiest days I've ever seen him, recalls his dad, Rick Lanteigne. He worked at the Twisted Fork in Mount Albert. Apparently, he is a chef and he really enjoys it. He enjoys cooking for other people. He enjoys cooking for his family. This article also mentions that he was pretty lucky to have a job that was essentially right downstairs from where he lived, so he didn't have any kind of big commute or anything like that. It brought him joy to see other people enjoy what he cooked, adds his father, Rick. He loves to talk. He has a vast knowledge of a lot of things, says Lori. He wanted life to be just about love, adds his aunt. Generosity is also one of Cory's defining characteristics. He would give you the shirt off his back, says his father. In fact, when Cory came into some money a few years back, he bought his dad a Mustang for Father's Day and took his family on a trip. I think that's a pretty clear indicator. We've got a guy that really loves his family, and he also expresses that with them. Growing up with his sister Danielle, Cory loved getting together with the larger family. About 4 years ago, however, Cory started struggling with mental health issues, ultimately being diagnosed manic depressive, says his Aunt Lori. Leading up to his disappearance, Rick saw his son about once a week and thought things were okay, although he was aware that Cory's doctors had never quite found the right balance for his medication, and that at some point his son stopped taking it. This is something, if you look into mental health related stories, you'll see this common. There's a struggle that goes on with patients and their doctor to try to get the balance just right. And sometimes they get the balance right and it doesn't keep working. Sometimes it'll work for a period of time, a year, maybe even a few years, and then things will just kind of start sliding again. It's a constant struggle. But then there's also this flip side to it where occasionally people will either start feeling like, well, I'm okay now, I don't need to continue taking this, and they'll essentially stop taking their medication, or there's times where they don't feel good on the medication. They don't like feeling like something else is controlling their mind. There's all kinds of different variations of it, but either sometimes they're feeling too good and they stop, or other times they're not feeling good and they still stop. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in this case with Cory. Quote, "He didn't want anyone or anything to control him." In the 2 days before he was last seen, Cory had some sort of breakdown and was admitted and released from the hospital in Newmarket twice, until Rick finally felt he had to call the police on his son in an attempt to force him to get help. "I knew something was wrong. He just wasn't well. He knew how to talk to them," says Rick, referring to hospital staff and police. It's just such a tough situation. I can understand a father wanting to help his son, but to get to that point where you actually have to try to call the authorities to take your son for help, and then you're not convinced that he's getting the help because you're worried that he kind of knows how to talk these people out of treating him. It seems really scary. It's a really scary thing. You already feel like your loved one is acting in so many different ways, and you're trying to get them help so that they can get back to the person that you know and love. But you see this turn, and I don't know. I know there's a lot of people out there that sympathize with what Rick is going through and with what Cory's going through. It's tough on the person going through it. It's tough on the family. It's a tough situation all the way around. Now, looking back on everything that has happened, Rick feels that the system failed his son, adding that if he had only gotten the help he needed, he may be with his family today. Since her nephew had taken time to heal at her Little Britain home before, Lori opened her doors to Cory once again, hoping some time away may be just what he needed. And it's weird. It's a sweet aspect of this case, but it's also a heartbreaking aspect that you really have his family trying to do everything they can to help him, even opening up their home while you know he might not be exactly the same nephew that you know and love from years prior. But everyone is really stepping up here, and it breaks my heart that what they're facing now is not knowing where Cory is. Back to a quote from his Aunt Lori, "He wasn't in a good place. I don't think he understood where he was emotionally." Cory was still out of sorts, asking both his aunt and cousin not to go to work. But given that another family member was home during the day, they left, expecting to see him again that night. Cory left the O'Reilly Lane home to take a walk at 4 p.m. He didn't take his phone or dress appropriately to be out in the cold for an extended period of time. When he hadn't returned by 6 p.m., Lori reported him missing. Police had pulled out all the stops, going door to door, utilizing helicopters and the K-9 unit, but the search had been severely challenged by a snowstorm that hit the previous night. So you already have all these tough dynamics going on at an emotional level, at a family level. You have him leave without taking his phone. I don't know if it's a bad decision. I don't know if he's doing that intentionally. It's just really unfortunate for this case that he didn't take his phone with him. And then on top of all that, you now have a snowstorm that actually comes in and hits the place. One of these articles suggests that the snowstorm might also limit the dog's abilities to track him. I don't know enough about that to know if that's accurate or not, but it is stated in one of these articles. It's just, you've already got a tough situation, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse as it develops throughout that one day. But they do have a message for Cory here. More than anything, the family wants Cory to know that they love and miss him very much. From his partner, Haley, their 2 sons, his sister, Danielle, his 3 nephews and a niece on the way, his aunts, uncles, cousins, including Chantel and Tabitha, and all of his friends. So many lives have been forever altered by Cory's 7-month absence. For Rick, his message to his son is simple. Just to let him know that if he needs time, that's okay. Just let us know. On April 20th, 2018, we get another update at My Kawartha. Police again asking public for help finding missing man. I was hoping this would mean that there was some new details. There isn't really new details released. They do talk about the fact that they take canine units out, that they took a helicopter out, but they haven't been able to find him. Police have continued the investigation, but have found no clues to Lanteigne's disappearance. Police do not suspect any foul play in his disappearance. So that hasn't changed as time is passing by. October 1st, 2018, we get another update at mykawartha.com. Ontario cold case. Police continue to seek leads into Cory Lanteigne's disappearance. However, there's no new details. They're basically just going over the same points that we've already discussed here. This is a picture of Lori Davies, his aunt, and his father, Rick. This is another article. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the original version because some news sites will only let you read so many articles, but I was able to pull up the Google cached version. Rick Lanteigne can't believe today's technology hasn't helped him find his missing son, Cory. I called the TV station and they have all those windows at the bottom of the screen, the weather forecasts and stuff. Why can't they run photos of missing people? Rick said it's a station that everybody watches and that he even offered to pay to put Cory's photo on some of the screen windows, but they told me they don't do that and hung up on me. Terrible. I mean, I understand that maybe they're not able to do that, but can't they give him some alternative? Can't they refer him to, hey, you know, we can't really do that here, but there is a public access station that we know about. I mean, you can go do a whole half-hour segment. We know someone that'll interview you. Something. I mean, just to tell the guy, hey, we can't replace our weather forecast on the bottom of the screen with a picture of your son, but we do have a news department. We're going to get a reporter in touch with you and see if we could do a segment. I mean, just something. It breaks my heart that he would be hung up on. He continues to hold out hope. His son just needed to get away from everything for a while. I sent him to a military-type survival skills school. He knows how to survive, Rick said. If he decided to go to Algonquin Park and stay in the woods for a year, he could do it. If he didn't want to be found, he wouldn't be. But not knowing where he is getting more frustrating every day. Rick says Kawartha Lakes police, who continue to ask for leads into Cory's disappearance, do not believe he has met with foul play, that he is alive and perhaps doesn't want to be found. Rick noted they searched intensively for him when he was missing, and last year they searched the water in the O'Reilly Lane area twice, but found nothing. So that's the point I was talking about before. We know that they have searched the water twice. What we don't know is what they've used to search the water. It's interesting because this article is kind of starting with a touch on the technology angle, and for water searches, are they using sonar of some kind? Are they literally just out in a boat? They're doing a manual search. I mean, there's a few different things that could happen with boat searches like that. We just don't have the detail, but we know that they've at least tried twice. Rick says the afternoon Cory went missing, the weather was clear when he left the house, and someone saw him at 4:20 p.m. A neighbor's security camera also recorded Cory as he walked along the road, Rick said. After that, nothing. There are only three possibilities: that he got picked up by someone, he hitchhiked, or he's still there. Still out there, possibly in the water. Possibly, I don't know what type of currents they have there, if he could have been moved to a different water source, or if there's enough brush or trees or wilderness out there that he could still be in that area in some way. A reward of $5,000 has been offered for information that leads to finding Cory. Now, that's at the time that this article was posted, which was October 9th, 2018. I'm not sure if that is still the case now, a year later. I'd be very surprised if the reward wasn't still available, but just to put that out there. So this is who we're looking for: Cory Rick Lanteigne. Do you have the piece of the puzzle that his family's looking for? If you do, please use the contact details in the description box below and send that tip in. They desperately need help to find the answers. There is a web sleuth thread on this. It's not very long. I think we've covered everything that's in it pretty much here on this video. On top of that, there is the Facebook page, Let's Find Cory Lanteigne. And there's a post that Rick made there just last month, I think in honor of his search for his son in honor of Mental Health Awareness Week, I want to share a significant portion of this post with you guys. Rick is actually asking for that in this post as well. So here we go. Maybe if people's heads weren't buried in the sand of ignorance and they took the time to understand, instead of judging and thinking it won't happen to them because they have the perfect family, life would be a bit easier for people that do experience this. This hits close to home for me, for family and friends who live under this shadow. The days of it not being talked about or being taboo should be over. In the most difficult moments of life, you realize who your true friends are and the people who really appreciate you. Unfortunately, most social media friends aren't true friends. They will send you a like here and there, but in reality, they do not take time to read your status if they see it's lengthy. More than half will stop reading right here, or have already scrolled on to the next post on their page. I decided to post this message in support of all those who will continue to battle with their mental illness. More mental health awareness is urgently needed. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean people aren't suffering. Please, try to spare a little of your time with someone who may just want to talk about anything. Talking can help us all cope a little more. Keeping things bottled up just makes it worse. Most people will say, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call me. I'll be there to help you. But will they? He then asks his friends that are reading this post to copy and repost it. Rick, I hope that you appreciate the way that we've reposted it here in the video. And I'm really sorry that your family is facing this. This would have already been a tough enough situation without Cory's disappearance. And to just add that on top of this is really heartbreaking. And I frequently cover cases in the U.S. that deal with some aspect of mental health awareness, and I kind of promote the U.S. information that I can find. For Canada, this is a Canadian case. I found this great resource called mindyourmind.ca, and it's essentially an area where there's a list of all kinds of different resources you can reach out to for help. That includes just where to get mental health help using, Canada has their own medical health for citizens. We don't really have that here in the U.S. So we have kind of these different organizations that are trying to step up and fill in around that, crisis phone numbers and things like that. But there's all kinds of different resources that we've got here for Canada. They've also put some Ontario-specific resources in here. On top of that, they've included resources for the United States. I really like their approach and how they pulled all this to one location. So please remember mindyourmind.ca. Of course, I'll have a link to it in the description box below. On top of that, I found a resource that they've put here that I didn't know about before, and this is for resources outside of Canada and the United States. And I know we've got viewers all around the world, so I want to include this resource. Unfortunately, I can't say the name of it because I know YouTube will demonetize this video, but you can see it on the screen here. I'm making it blank for you guys. It's a word YouTube doesn't like for some reason, but here is a list of hotlines for all kinds of different countries in the world. I really like what they're doing here. You can tell it's not the most well-funded organization you've ever seen. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So on behalf of myself, my amazing supporters, you guys, through PayPal, Patreon, buying merch, we're going to make a donation to this website. I really wish I could say their name. It's just stupid YouTube rules. We're going to make a donation to them today so they can keep up their operations, maybe help, cover their website domain name for another few years. But if you are moved to also make a donation, please check them out. Link is in the description box below. Can you help find Cory? Please share this video, particularly if you have friends in the Ontario, Canada area. But quite honestly, if he is a bit of a hitchhiker, he might not be in that area necessarily anymore. I would say any friends in Canada, please share this video with them. Or if you have friends that maybe need to be more aware of mental health issues, what it's like to deal with that within a family, what it's like to deal with that compounded with the person going missing, please share this video with them. Maybe there's something that they could learn in the experience that we're seeing Rick and his family have searching for Cory. Maybe there's something that can help them in some way. Before I end today's video, I want to thank several new patrons, starting with Hilka Tuovinen. Hope I'm saying that right, Hilka. Rob Payne, thank you, Rob. Elizabeth Votava. And on top of that, Amanda Megan increased her pledge. Thank you all for helping to keep me here, spending time with you guys, and helping organizations like we saw in today's video. Take care, everyone. I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brainscratch on the Lord and Arts channel.